Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of The Conversation Room. I'll be your host for the day, Bukatam Sonda, also known as TGV. Ladies, if you're joining us for the first time, The Conversation Room is basically a platform where we have conversations that matter, conversations about things that affect our current society today, whether religious, political, economical, all sorts of conversations. As long as it affects our current society and it's a conversation worth having, this is the place to be. If you're just joining us, please feel free to subscribe, like, share. Let people know about the platform. Today on the show, I have a very interesting guest because the topic we have is mental health and the church. We basically just want to unpack the place of mental health in today's society in relation to the church. So the guest I have today is very qualified for this conversation. I'll just let him introduce himself. His name is David. Please let the people know.
Okay, thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. So my name is David Mwanza, psychotherapist with Thrive Wellness Hub, working locally and also in Southern Africa. Some of the problems I deal with or specialize in are related to trauma, depression, anxiety, substance use, and suicidal ideation. So I'm excited to be here today. Looking forward to our conversation in the conversation room.
Lovely. Okay, so we always have to start with an icebreaker,
Cool.
Just a few questions to help people understand where we're trying to take the conversation, and just that as we go on, we can have a similar understanding of basic definitions. So let's start by defining what mental health is, and maybe you could tell us some of the things that you feel like are overlooked when it comes to mental health.
Okay. I like to define mental health as a state of self-awareness, where you know your strengths, you know your weaknesses, and you're able to make effective decisions for your day-to-day life and go about your day-to-day responsibilities, right? So a mental health problem would come when, one, you're not self-aware of your strengths, what you're good at, you're not self-aware of your weaknesses, what you're bad at, and you're unable to make effective decisions anymore as a son, as a father, as a workmate, or in any role that you may be in at a particular time. So when it comes to some of the challenges we face, number one, right at the top of the list would be the stigma. So when you hear mental health, everyone always thinks, oh, Chainama, talking to yourself, scratching the walls, banging your head on the wall, right?
Yeah.
But mental health goes beyond that. So we often think of the most severe cases of what mental health falls into or mental health problems, but there's a range of problems from mild, medium to severe, which we all know about mostly from movies, mostly from what we've heard. But we overlook the mild and the medium, where a lot of us fall into. Just being sad, for the longest time. Saying this year, New Year's resolution, I've stopped drinking. And 2 weeks later, you are back at the bottle, you're back at the joint, whatever it may be. And so these consistent recurring habits that we kind of try to get away from but find them still persisting in our lives could possibly red flag as something we should take note of or could be falling into the mental health problem category.
Okay.
So basically stigma about it and needing to educate the society of what it really is. So knowledge.
So those are things that have been overlooked. I heard you say something. You said you connected mental health with basically self-awareness. So is it correct to say if a person is not adequately self-aware, then they are not mentally healthy?
Well, you could say that. I mean, if you have a cough or you have a fever, right? And you're not aware that, you may need medication for that. You may need to ice yourself. You may need to, check your temperature or something. Then that's going to cause consequences for you in the long run, right? In case it's something bigger. And so because we may only know things at the extent where they've escalated and they're big, we overlook that prevention is better than cure, right? And so sometimes when there are little minor issues that you're facing, you may either be ignorant of it, you may either overlook it or not take it as serious. But your health is your wealth, some people say. So it's worth taking into consideration and taking seriously.
I like how you're connecting other illnesses that people are more familiar with mental health, because then now it gives us a better understanding of the gravity or of the how can I put it? Because mental health is normally looked at as quite an unfriendly situation.
That's true.
But then the way I explain it kind of makes it a more friendly. I'm not saying it's a mental illness is a good thing, but like it helps us understand even better.
Yeah.
So on this journey of sensitization and whatnot, how would you say the church can help? How would you say the church can be a part of the journey to sensitizing people with regards to issues of mental health? Yeah, let's start there.
Okay, so I think every sector, every arena should understand that the needs of a human being range far and wide, from your physical needs, psychological needs, and spiritual needs. So they kind of overlap and need to complement one another. So there's nothing wrong in therapy, and it's very important that if someone or a client has faith-based inclinations, to encourage them to invest into that, right? And that's a therapist. He's not a preacher, or maybe he has many roles. But as a therapist only, he would encourage, invest in your faith, right? And then the opposite should be true as well. You have a clergyman who's advocating, oh, you have a cough, you are sick, you go see a doctor. Or you've been struggling with bouts of depression, go see a psychotherapist, because of the level of needs and the specializations. Because a pastor, a therapist, a doctor, an engineer, all specialize in different places that human beings need assistance in. And so it's really just the advocating for one another and referring process that's very important, I think.
I see. Okay, so in short, you're basically telling us that one of the ways the church can help is if the heads of the church can outright come out and tell the members that if you're having mental issues, you could please go see a professional, and also just to educate them on the importance of how the specialization makes the mental health practitioners more suited for helping the members and whatnot.
Exactly. Just helping with accessibility, right? Okay. So be the path that you can connect your congregants to the right sources, to the right professionals, to the right service.
I see. Okay. So I was having a conversation with a couple of friends of mine. For those that don't know, I am a prayer coordinator for my fellowship at Mwanza, Breakthrough Fellowship.
Okay.
So I was asked one time to say, do you think prayer can help with mental health? Now, because people argue that to some extent it contributes to people's, I don't know if I should say lack of mental health. Because here's a situation where somebody's been praying for months, and they don't get an answer. And then they've been plagued with an issue and they feel like it needs to be sorted. And so they put all their faith in this prayer in God, and they pray for months and they don't get answers. And so people say that can affect your mental health, because then people start, feeling like things don't work in their lives and it just spirals all the way down. But then, others in the same conversation argue that it's therapeutic. So where would you say prayer falls? Do you think it's both detrimental and therapeutic, or do you think it's therapeutic and helpful? How would you say prayer plays a role in the whole mental health conversation?
Okay, that's an excellent question. I think it all depends on perspective, right?
Yes.
Because prayer in itself is a tool, and it depends from which angle you're looking at it. As I said, perspective. Prayer is a faith-based idea. It's not something that's psychological. It's not something that's a mental health idea. It comes from religion. It comes from faith. It comes from someone's belief system, right? Okay. Yeah. And so whether it's working or not working, people should look at the foundations of their belief system for that area. However, in mental health, prayer in itself is looked as an activity of which, if the client finds important, is very therapeutic to practice. Is very important for them to do on a consistent basis. So when you talk about an aspect of mental health, we call it self-care. Self-care are healthy activities that each and every one of us need to take up for a good mindset, to feel more fulfilled, to have meaning to life. And one of which, in Zambia, a religious or Christian nation, invest in things like prayer, invest in things like the Word of God. And so you would have some clients say, prayer really makes me relax. I think when I pray, things get sorted out, right? And so that can be a tool a client uses to help them feel better. But then, addressing your question, a client may come, when I pray, things are not working, right? So it wouldn't be great for the mental health practitioner to be like, okay, tell me more about prayer. Because he's not going to really address it from the scripture point of view, unless he's using like a faith-based approach, which is solely Christian. However, he would actually look at, okay, if prayer is not working for you, what activities around do help for you to feel calm, to feel relaxed in the midst of waiting for your prayer to be answered? Because the client and the therapist have very little control on an answered prayer, but have control over what the client can practically do apart from prayer to help themselves feel better. And that would be the aim on how to assist them.
I see. I like how, I should say this, I like how you're separating the two. Because I feel like you exist in both capacities, because I believe you're a Christian. It's not a secret.
Yeah.
So you're a Christian and then you're a mental health practitioner. I like how you're separating the two, because I'm hearing you say you're giving prayer its due, like it's a faith-based practice. So the conversation of whether it's answered or not has very little to do, or maybe the practitioner has very little to do with whether your prayer is answered or not. But they can help you with the journey of self-care, like you said. So I like how you're splitting the two. It's giving very good
clarity. It's important to look at the difference.
It's giving very good clarity. Okay, so then there's a different challenge that I can maybe bring up. Here's somebody who's, let me say, living in poverty. They don't come from much, they are struggling in their life. And then they go to church, and then the man of God is preaching prosperity messages, saying you are the wealthy, you are the salt of the land, yours is to be rich, yours is to have money. And then they go back, and the whole week they go and experience poverty. They haven't eaten shima, they've just been licking salt the whole week. And they go back to church again, and the man of God again tells them, you are the salt of the world, you are rich, So do you think the gap between the person's actual reality, their life, and what's being preached in the church is contributing to how people are getting depressed in this world? Because I come across Christians that say, I go to church and I feel out of place because they are telling me I have all this money, but when I go back and try to actualize what they're saying, there's a gap. So do you think there's a problem there, and what would you say would be the solution?
Okay, yeah. I think there would definitely be a problem. If that was me, and I've been there before, it's heartbreaking. No, you are rich, just have faith. I'm like, what faith do you have? I need it because I think my faith is not working. And I'll do it as we talked about with the previous question yes. Trying to categorize it, right? So in every sector of your life, there's the ideal and there's the true self of what's actually happening. And the journey and challenge with all of us is that there's usually a difference between who we really are and who we want to be. And that cuts across the different areas of our life. As a son, who you want to be and who you really are. As a businessman, who you want to be and who you really are at this moment. And so there's always this gap that you want to journey on, that you want to close to become your true definition of what that particular area would be. And so even as a Christian, so your man of God is preaching, and of course, sound doctrine, remember, from the faith-based angle on what is true and healthy for someone needs to be put into consideration. But all in all, there's always a journey from when saved and you got saved and who the Bible says you are, right? So the man is preaching you are rich, but that's not really the reality at the moment. Does that mean that you're off the mark? Does that mean you aren't in Christ anymore because you aren't meeting that mark? So you're on the journey still. And where you are now does not define who you are, isn't it? Because we're on a journey in life. Be it as a businessman, be it as a poet, be it as a psychologist, we're on a journey towards who we truly feel we are called to be. But it takes time. And we won't get there in a blink of an eye. But there's some things we need to learn. There's some things we need to, some people we need to meet. There's some things we need to actually put behind us in order to transition into that ideal person. And a lot of things are required to get there. As I said, people we need to meet, knowledge we need to get, some habits we need to take off. And so the main point will be self-reflection of, okay, what's going on within my control that I'm getting right or that I'm getting wrong. And that self-evaluation should provide the platform for you to make the steps forward in whatever arena you want to grow into. So that's where I would address it from.
I must say, the what you call it, precision. I don't know what the way it is. You're being exact. It's good. No, it's good because it's giving clarity. Because most of us seem to mix everything in a bowl, but I like how you're nitpicking and separating the situations. Now, this next situation is for the brothers out there, I need to look out for the homeboys in the church. So, we have a lot of situations where some of my brothers out there, I like a girl in the church, I know Sister Mary is looking beautiful, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this boy goes to his friends and says, guys, encourage me. And we encourage him. We say, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. More wonderfully than fearfully made. And this brother goes and approaches a lady in the church and goes, no, Sister Mary, me, I like you. I want us to, see where this can go. And then Sister Mary answers and says, no, let me pray about it. So the debate there, people have interesting debates. I found this conversation. I said I need to have this conversation with Mr. David.
Okay.
So the debate there that came from that was that they find that common trait has how can I put it, has been harmful to the self-image that a lot of brothers in the church may have. Because when they say they want to pray about it, what they actually mean in most cases is they don't necessarily like him, but they are failing to tell him they don't like him. So they just say, no, let me pray about it and disappear. Away from the church, maybe I can say in the secular world, they call it ghosting. So it's a way of a sister in the church ghosting a brother. So the question becomes, how do you navigate such, And the advice I want is not necessarily for the brothers. Okay, you can give for both, How do the brothers navigate such? And how do the sisters who are failing to just say, no, I'm not feeling you like that. How do they say it without necessarily affecting the mental health of the gentleman? Because a lot of us assume as guys, we are used to receiving no's because we are the ones that approach. So we can just take it on the chest. Now imagine your crush, you've been seeing this girl since Sunday school. And then she says no.
Yeah.
She says no, let me pray about it. And she disappears for months.
Obvious.
She disappears for months. So how would you say we can navigate such issues? Because those are real issues that happen in the church.
That's true.
So how would we navigate such?
Oh, wow. That's a big question. Okay. Usually at the stage that you're looking for a relationship it's coming pretty early now. You look at your teenage years, going through your 20s, your 30s, ideally. By 30s, you are married, ideally. But of course, it can extend. There are no rules really to finding a partner. And so at this stage, from your teens, 20s, and your 30s, it's a real significant part of your life is finding a life partner.
Yes.
And have an intimate relationship with someone that you can build a future with, someone that you can call baby, someone that you can have children with and really accomplish great things with. And so it feels like that's a little box that many of us at that age, me being in my 20s, want to tick off and say, okay, I found my person. So what happens when that doesn't work out? It feels, for one, like your life has crumbled because there's that box that's not ticked. We live in a world that says it's really scheduled and routined, Like go to school, finish grade 12, go to university, get a job, find a wife, have a baby, buy land, and on and on and on. It's really structured.
Yeah.
But what happens once you miss maybe the grade 12? What happens when you miss the university experience? What happens when you miss the girl? You miss the guy? It feels like a part of your life is incomplete. And we also live in a world based on issues of lack of self-awareness and issues of boundaries where we define who we are because of the circumstances around us, right?
Yes.
You not having a partner does not define how great you are, how weak you are. It does not define you. But we live in a world where we'll point at you and say, because you're missing this, you are great, but you're missing this. So,
Yeah.
And so it's really, who are you allowing to define who you are? And what's your basis of that? And the problem we have is that we allow many people to define us. And so I know what it feels like to be denied. Because you question your integrity, you question your looks, you question your whole life. Like, why was I even born? Why do I even exist? Because of this one person? How many people have you met in your life? But why does this one impact you so much? Because of the hopes that you had. And one very important thing is because of the way you're thinking about it. And so in mental health, we talk about cognitive distortions. These are unhelpful ways that people think that affect their lives, that affect their world and perception of the world. And so cognitive distortions don't only happen at individual level, but they happen at society level. And just like the way we're talking about China, so it's red flagged and blacklisted as, it's for crazy people. That's a cognitive distortion. So the girl has dumped me. I have no value. I have no worth. I'm not good. Cognitive distortion. And these cognitive distortions come as a result of the life experiences that we go through. Like being denied by a girl, like failing an exam, like someone dying, right? All these events that happen into our lives shift sometimes the way we think about ourselves and the way we think about the world. So definitely it will be detrimental to your mental health. But how do you recover from that? Going back to, how are you thinking about the situation? Are you allowing it to define who you are? Are you dwelling on it so much that it has even, it has collapsed the way you work, collapsed the way you do your school, collapsed the way you do your business? Then that's red flagging for mental health area. So if we only think mental health is the severe stuff, my friend, when you get a breakup and you're sad for I don't know how many years, you're flagging in mental health problem if it's affecting you that way. And you need tools that help you change the way you think. You need tools to understand your self-awareness, and you need tools to draw boundaries. To say, I may get a no, but that doesn't have nothing to do with how great I am. Has nothing to do with who I am or where I've come from as my background. You know, there are some issues like, I would have dated him but money. I would have dated him but he's Ngoni. I would have dated him but he's Tonga. Right? And so those no's, sometimes we allow them to define us when we shouldn't. So we give people power they're not supposed to have. And until we get it back, they have power over us, the society has power over us, and our lives are crippled. So I've said a lot, but yeah.
No. You've helped me. But although you have left out just the last part, and then maybe we can go to the last question because of time.
Okay.
Yes, you taught Brother John how to handle the situation. I hope Brother John has heard.
It's actually Brother Bernard usually.
But that's a good one. But how do you suggest the ladies should approach it? If, say, for example, she doesn't like the brother, you know?
Okay.
How is she supposed to let the brother know that, no, instead of lying for God, that I've gone to ask God? Okay. How can they let the brother know?
Okay, thank you for reminding me. Yes. Yeah, I did forget that. As far as mental health is concerned, there is what's called assertive communication. And now we live in a society and a culture that is very polite. Very apologetic, even when you've not done anything. My Chipata brothers would be, you bump into me, but I say sorry to you. Why am I saying sorry to you? She breaks your heart. I'm sorry, what did I do wrong? Right? Or she denies you. But anyway, assertive communication is really just standing your ground, but saying it in a nice way, basically, right? And not compromising yourself for the sake of others. And we may be here so many times. Oh, there's an event on Friday night. Your siblings want to go. You don't want to go. But they're like, come on, let's go. And for the sake of sometimes peace, for the sake of not being nagged, and for the sake of not looking stubborn, you say yes. And when you go for that event, you are angry. You are depressed. You are upset the whole time because you compromise yourself for the sake of others. And sometimes that leads people into relationships even that they didn't want to be in. And these are the ladies or these are the men, whichever side it may be. And so assertive communication is just really telling the truth there as it is and being open, right? Being open to the anger of the other person, of course, because sometimes, to be honest, the truth hurts, whether we like it or not. Being said no to is not fun. But better than no than the yes that was not true. And being carried on into a relationship with someone that didn't really or wasn't really 100% for you. And so a quote from a book says, if you don't work it out, you act it out. And so a no, a yes that wasn't really a yes will somehow come out, you know. There'll be one person that's more in love with the other person and it's showing, but you're trying to brush it off, right? And so when we don't work things out and actually talk about them, they'll come out in the way we behave. I'm upset with someone, I'll give them silent treatment instead of just saying, well, I'm upset with you because of what you did yesterday. All of a sudden you walk into the room and I'm not looking at you, I'm on the phone. Dear yoga, I'm good. But nakaripa, you see? Because we don't work things out sometimes and then we'll act them out. So as we say, prevention is better than cure. So from the onset, and this is a skill we actually have to grow into, because when you have the habit of always giving in and compromising yourself, to come to a place where you stand your ground and try and openly set your own boundaries can be difficult. And you need to learn and practice that, just like riding a bike. You need to learn and practice that. And working with a therapist helps you get there.
So you said assertive communication.
Assertive communication.
I feel like with regards to how we're talking about the church helping, I feel like apart from the men of God, pointing in the direction of therapists, I feel like we should be doing surveys, Like I'm sure there's surveys that can go around in the church to help determine where people are, mentally. And, just having sensitization workshops, like where we just sit and talk. Because I kind of have had the concept you've just shared with us of assertive communication. I learned it later on in my life after I said yes to so many things I didn't want to say yes to.
Oh, wow.
But then I've never really had a word to put to it. And I've never really understood that it's something you practice.
Yeah.
So I feel like this is an area maybe where we just need to go all out as a community and even just as a church to just spread the news the same way we spread the gospel, because I feel like it's important for us to be mentally healthy.
That's so true.
So I have to pick one more question from this. So I'm trying to see. We need to end with a bang.
Pick a good one.
Let me see. I feel like this ties into what we've already talked about, but anyway, maybe we could just shed more light here. It says, don't you think the emphasis on God will do it for you destroys the average Christian's view on the real world, and they end up having mental breakdowns when they encounter life's challenges? Because you see, me who grew up in the church, I can testify. From Sunday school, I've been told about how this God will provide for me, how this God will protect me, I've been told all sorts of, affirmative things about my faith, and about God's place in my life. But then I'll tell you the truth, when I got into university, because I feel like that's when really my parents let me out into the world to really experience life on my own, I found that the gap was a bit, so it left me in a space where I started thinking they're lying to me in church, and that's what maybe makes a lot of us kind of pull away from the church. But then on top of it, it had an effect on my mental health when I think about it. Because then I ended up in a space where something I really depended on and felt like was my rock was seeming to have been falling short in the real world. The challenges seemed to be more of a mammoth situation than as I was told earlier on in my life. So how do you think we can navigate that problem? Do you think maybe the Sunday school people should stop telling us these things? Or how do you think we should navigate this?
Oh, wow. Yeah. So I think we touched a bit on this, but maybe we could
just re-emphasize.
Yeah, re-emphasize. So there's always a difference or a gap between who you are right now and really who you want to be. And so as far as even a faith-based mindset or your Christian walk is concerned, there's always going to be a difference between who you are today and who the Bible says you are, or who you envision yourself to be in whatever kind of ministry that you are called to. And really, how the fuel you need to get to where you need to be is the right doctrine, the right food, the right meat, right? Just think of a child. If they're not getting the right food, they'll be malnourished. They'll be sickly. They'll be wondering why aren't I growing? Because they're not getting the right food, the right intake. And so even with Christianity, the right doctrine is your food that once you get, you begin to grow into what you need to be, right? Now, the challenge is, anyway, a view of that I've come to learn about Christianity is that Christianity is a service-based religion. It's really a service-based religion. And something about, we call it the prosperity gospel, is like it's a cash-in religion. It's like rewards-based only religion. But what happens when the rewards are not coming? What's happening when the cash is not coming? It makes it seem as though you are falling short or you are not really getting the real deal. So if Jesus Christ is the pioneer of the Christian faith, I think he did cash in with heaven and being now called the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. But a lot of his life was service. A lot of his life was he gets up, he's healing the sick, he's preaching, he's sharing, he's doing something for others. And so we're shifting the narrative towards a religion that doesn't carry weight with who the founder is sometimes. And so it feels like the Christian religion is saying go this way, but we're preaching a message that's going the other way. And so not only is there a challenge to live the right way as Jesus did, that's hard in itself. But then when you're on the entire wrong path of what it means to be like Jesus, you've got more than one gap to cover. To be like Jesus in itself is difficult. But now when you're on a path where you're thinking it's a reward-based system and you're not getting the rewards you're looking for, it could cause a lot of confusion, right? So what's your foundational teaching or what's your foundational theology around what it means to be a Christian in the first place? Are you out to serve others to get something, or are you out to serve others for serving others' sake because that's what your Lord and Savior has done? So it's really, what is your foundational understanding of what it means to be a Christian first and foremost? Because a lot of what Jesus did was not self-seeking, but was for the benefit of others.
Makes sense. So basically, just to kind of wind it up, the encouragement is that we should revisit the foundation of our faith if we find ourselves in such a situation. That's very, very profound in that, it puts back the responsibility into our hands. I like solutions like that because a lot of us like to wait for other people to pull us out of our problems, but that solution you're giving gives us the homework. It gives me the homework to go home and say, okay, what is this Christian thing about? I was taught in Sunday school that, Jesus walked on water. How come I'm failing to walk on water? Okay, let me do the homework. Yeah. So I like that you have shifted the responsibility. Okay, so before we close and, end this conversation, what would you just want to leave with the viewers? Just something you feel like we should walk away with regards to just mental health and even just the church, briefly.
Okay, I like to say that mental health and the church or Christianity have one common aim, and they aim both to transform. They aim to transform our lives. They aim to transform our mindset. They aim to transform our situations. And so transformation is a process, and transformation requires knowledge sometimes, and it requires letting go of certain things that may be holding us down. So always think of growth, always think of learning, always think of bettering yourself, not only for yourself, but for others around you, to make your world more friendly, more useful, more impactful, and more meaningful. So aim to transform, aim to learn, aim to grow.
That's lovely. Ladies and gentlemen, this is all we had for this episode. It's been brief but profound, definitely profound. If you've missed points, make sure you go back and, just revisit them. Otherwise, thank you for joining us. This has been The Conversation Room. I've been your host, Wukatam Sonda, also known as TGV, with my guest, lovely, amazing guest here, Mr. David. I must apologize. Unfortunately, our co-host, Chims, couldn't be with us, Chimwemwe. As a student and a working student, he's couldn't find the time, but he'll be with us next time. I guess it's you next time, guys. I'll see you.